Openings teach you openings, in-games teach you chess. Rook and pawn in-games are very important because of following reasons. They make up 50% of all in-game scenarios in chess. They are crucial for mastering chess strategy, to convert advantages into victories, for achieving high levels of play. In this video, I am going to teach you how to win these positions as attacking side and how to draw these positions as defending side. Before that, let us discuss the problems of many chess players in these in-games. Problems: poor in-game knowledge, can't win the own game, can't capitalize the advantage in in-game, can't defend in theoretical draw position, stuck in certain rating, small knowledge of advanced in-games. Solutions: study in-games, understand what move the board wants, be patient, take your time in critical move, never design too early, use prophetic thinking, watch video till the end. Objectives: learn to capitalize the advantage, know how to win the own game, defend theoretical draw positions, evaluating rook and pawn in games position, basic and advanced understanding of rook and pawn in games. So let's start our video. Number 1. Lucena Position. It is fundamental in the rook and pawn versus rook in game. If the side with the pawn can reach this type of position, they can forcibly win the game. Lucena Position occurs when the defending player has a king and a rook, and the other player has an extra pawn that is about to promote, and a king that occupies the promotion square, and a rook that cuts up the enemy king by at least one file. Remember, the Lucena Position is one of those in-games that is always winning for the side with extra pawn. If a player knows how to proceed, there is no way to stop them from winning the game. We are playing with white pieces here, and we win by following these steps. Number 1. Cut off opponent's king by at least 2 files. Number 2. Place your rook on the 4th rank. Number 3. Bring out your king from pawn promotion square. Explanation: now we will just follow the steps. We give a check on e1. If king to f6, then king f8 just wins the game, as we are promoting the pawn on the next move. And after rook to e1 check, if opponent's king goes to d file, which is their only option, then our step first is completed. Now we will place our rook on 4th rank. Our step 2 is also completed. Doesn't really matters what black plays. Let's say rook to g2. We will bring out our king. We are trying to promote on the next move, so black tries to keep continuous checks like this. And at this moment we play king to f5, and after rook g2 check, we have rook g4. Now the rooks are traded and we get a queen and simple winning in game. Number 2. Philidor Position. It happens when a player has only a rook and king defending against a rook, a pawn and a king. Most rook and pawn versus rook in games is either the Lucena Position or Philidor Position if played accurately. Remember, Philidor Position is a drawing technique for defending side in rook and pawn versus rook in game. With defending side playing correct moves, the game will always end the draw. Philidor Position is also known as 3rd rank defense because we place our rook on 3rd rank before opponent's king and pawn reaches the 3rd rank. To draw the Philidor Position, we need to follow the following steps. Number 1. Place your rook on the 3rd rank. Number 2. Wait for pawn to move. Once the pawn moves, place your rook for backward check. Number 3. If pawn doesn't move, keep repeating rook moves on the 3rd rank. Explanation: we place our rook on our 3rd rank, and opponent's king cannot enter our 3rd rank, and only rook cannot segment us. So white decides to push the pawn, and this is the moment we will play rook to a1 to give backward checks. Opponent can try keeping checks like this, but it will not work as the rook needs some help from his king. So white plays king to a6, and now we begin to give backward checks like this. If white king tries to stay in either of c file, d file or e file, we give continuous checks. And when opponent's king and pawn are separated by 2 files, we attack the pawn. Opponent's king is 2 file now, so white rook defends the pawn, and after king d7 and king f5, we take the pawn. So Philidor Position is a theoretical draw position. Number 3. 8th rank defense. This is a defending technique for a side having a rook and a king versus a rook, a king and a pawn. Remember, 8th rank defense works only for rooks and knights pawn, that is a pawn, b pawn, g pawn and s pawn. This position can also be defended by Philidor Position, which is just discussed, but 8th rank defense is much more easier. Our king should occupy pawn's promotion square to draw the game. To draw this position, we need to follow the following steps. Number 1. Place the rook on your 1st rank. Number 2. Keep your king on last rank of opponent's pawn file. Number 3. Repeat the rook moves on 1st rank. Explanation: we place our rook on our 1st rank. Opponent will try to make some progress by pushing the pawn, but will just repeat the rook moves on our first rank. White plays king to s6 and we are just repeating rook moves on our first rank. White gives check. Our plan is to put a king on either knight's pawn file or rook's pawn file. So we play king to h8. White can try giving checks like this but can't make any progress. And white can push the pawn but the game will enter a draw like this. So white can never make a progress here. Here is one tricky line on 8th rank defense where white loses if he makes this mistake. This is the position from analysis just shown and the move that loses for white is pawn to g7. Can you find the winning move for black? Yes, it is. Rook to s6, a great move. After king to g5, we take the rook and get a simple winning in game. Number 4. The rule of 5. It is a very interesting rook and pawn in game in which attacking side's rook cut off opponent's king by at least 2 files from his pawn and his king should protect the pawn. Listen carefully. The rule of 5 states that if the sum of number of rank of pawn and number of files by which defending side's king is cut off is more than 5, it will result in win, otherwise draw. The rule of 5 generally works for c pawn, d pawn, e pawn and f pawn. To win this position, we need to follow the following steps. Number 1. Bring out the king. Number 2. Place your rook behind the pawn. Number 3. Use your king to escort the pawn. Explanation. Here we will play king to b4 and it is the strongest option to help pawn promotion. Black plays rook to b8 check to give continuous checks. We play king to a5 and rook c8. If black played rook a8 check here, we would have played king b6 and if rook b8 check, king c7 and we will get Lucena position that we already discussed how to win, and if rook c8 here then c5. So black should play rook to c8 here. We play king to b5. Also we can play rook to c1 here but king b5 is easier. After rook b8 check and king a6, black plays rook to c8 and we play rook to c1 now. Black king tries to come closer to our pawn. We play king to b7 to remove the rook from c file. If rook c5 then king b6 and we can push the pawn. So black plays rook to g8. Now we push the pawn. Black gives check and we play king to c6. After king d5, black king comes very close to our pawn. So we play rook to d1 check, king e4 and c6 and now the pawn is pushed forward like this and we get a simple winning in game. Number 5. Vancura position. Vancura position is a very common rook and pawn versus rook in game in chess. Vancura position occurs when attacking side in rook and pawn versus rook in game has pawn on a or s file. It is a draw in game. In the Vancura position, defending side's rook keeps attacking the pawn from the side while keeping his king on near the corner on the opposite side of the board so that other side cannot sacrifice the pawn and then skewer our king and rook on the 7th rank. Steps. Number 1. Basic setup for ideal square of rook and king. Number 2. Rook's eye on pawn. Number 3. Keep checks. Explanation. Ideal square for rook and king in this position are f6 and g7 respectively. We start with rook to b2. If rook s7 check, king g6 and we place our rook on f6 like this. King e4, rook b4 check, king d3, rook b6, king d4 and rook f6. Now when opponent's king comes close to its pawn, we give multiple checks like king c5, rook f5 check, king d6, rook f6 check, king c7, rook f7 check, king b6, rook f6 check, king b5, rook f5 check, king c4, rook f4 check. And now after king d5, we have rook f6 keeping eye on a6 pawn. White tries to free a7 square to push pawn. We play king to g7 which is our ideal setup. White plays king to e5, we go rook c6 keeping eye on pawn. If rook to a7 check, king h8 is okay. White king moves to d5, we play rook to g6, king c5 getting more closer to the pawn. Rook f6 keeping our rook on 6th rank. If rook a8 check, king h7 and now when white finally push the pawn, we give continuous checks like this. a7, rook f5 check, king d6, rook f6 check, king d7, rook s6 and now we have vertical vision to the pawn. Now the game ends in draw very quick. After king c8, rook a1, king b7, rook b1 check, king s6, rook a1 check and we will get a draw by repetition or by 50 move rule. Number 6. Active rook versus passive rook. This is not a famous theoretical rook and pawn in game, but this position will explain the importance of rook activity in the game. Here we have a strong rook helping the pawn promotion, meanwhile opponent's rook is placed passively. Our idea is to attack opponent's king in order to escort the pawn. Steps. Number 1. Attack with the rook. Number 2. Move the king near pawn promotion square. Number 3. Keep pushing the pawn forward till the promotion square. Explanation. We start with rook to s3, threatening a mate in 1, so white is forced to play king to c1. We play rook to s1 check and white plays the only legal move, king to d2. Now king b2, moving king near pawn promotion square and then king d3 by white. When we get chance, we just push the pawn, so our move is pawn to b3. Opponent rook is busy blocking our king to a file, so white plays king to c4. Rook to s3 supporting the pawn and rook g8 by opponent trying to give some wrong side checks. King a2 and rook a8 check bring the pawn promotion. King goes to b1 g1 and rook f8 again trying to give some continuous checks. But we will just push the pawn, and after rook f1 check, king a2 and rook f2, we have king a1 and the winning moves are shown on the board. Number 7. Short side defense. It is a very crucial theoretical rook and pawn in game in which defending side presses its king on shorter side to draw the game. The wrong side is the side with more number of piles to the side of the board, and similarly the short side is the side with less number of piles. The player with the defending side in the rook and pawn versus rook in game should try to keep its rook on the wrong side and its king on the short side, because when we keep rook on the wrong side we can use it for wrong side checks also. Steps. Number 1. King on short side. Number 2. Rook on wrong side. Number 3. Continuous checks. Explanation. We play rook to b1 check and white plays king to c6. Now we place our king on short side with the move king b8, and after rook h8 check we play king to a7. White plays king to c7 to make space for pushing the pawn, and now we place our rook on wrong side with the move rook to g1. White plays pawn to c6 and the game will end in a draw with this sequence of checks. And this is the way to draw as a defending side with short side defense. Number 8. Frontal defense. A frontal defense is best used when the pawn has not advanced to the 5th rank. Even though our king is separated by 2 piles with opponent's pawn, this position is still a draw. Frontal defense can be very tricky, and a single mistake in this defense can cause a drawish position to losing the game. Our idea is to give as much checks as we can or to exchange the rooks in the right time. Steps. Number 1. Start with checks. Number 2. Block entry of opponent's king as much as possible. Number 3. Find right time to trade the rooks. Explanation. Our first move is rook to g8 check, and after king s4 we play rook h8 check. White plays king to g3 and we play rook g8 keeping eye on pawn. White plays rook to f5 with the plan of playing king s4 followed by rook h5. We play rook h8 and after pawn to g5 we play rook f8 and the rooks are traded, and this pawn in game is leading to a draw. The best continuation for both sides is shown on the board and the game will end in a draw. Now we have successfully completed all these 8 positions, and now let me give you some more chess tips. For rating video 1000, practice these 8 concepts of video. Learn segmenting patterns with rook. For 1000 to 1500, think of this in-game chance in middle game. For 1500 to 2000, learn practical rook and pawn in games. For above 2000, study GM schemes and in-game books. Additional tips. Remember both these tips and strategies and use them. Practice all these 8 positions versus computers or friends. Cut opponent's king by a rank on the wrong side of the pawn. Always think like, if the rooks are traded, is this pawn able to win or not? Study practical cases of rook and pawn in games, which is our next video, so please subscribe to our channel. Now let's move to the summary of our video. Number 1. Lucena Position. Most common rook and pawn versus rook in game and forcibly winning. Number 2. Philidor Position. Most common rook and pawn versus rook in game. Try 8 rank defense instead for ABG as pawns. Number 3. 8 rank defense. It works for ABG as pawns. Just trade the rooks for A or S pawn. Number 4. The rule of 5. If sum is more than 5, it is winning, otherwise draw. Generally works for C, D, E of pawns. Number 5. Vancura Position. Works for A and S pawns. Number 6. Active rook versus passive rook. Side with active rook should attack the king. Number 7. Short side defense. Rook on the wrong side, king on the short side. Number 8. Frontal defense. Best used when the pawn has not advanced to the 5th rank. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe, like, comment and share.